Hello everyone, this is Ankush Jain and in this video I will be talking about AWS Amplify Gen2. AWS Amplify is one of my favorite service and it should be yours as well if you want to build full stack applications on AWS. So in this video I am going to cover everything that you need to know about Amplify Gen2. First of all, if you want to build full stack application using any of the framework, so these are the front end frameworks like React.js, Next.js, Angular, Vue, React Native, Flutter. It supports all these frameworks. So if you are either a front end developer or a back end developer, you can build full stack applications using this framework. And it is so easy. Your application is basically front end application you will have that your end user will access, and in the back end it would be backed by AWS services, which is for security we are going to use Amazon Cognito. For storing the data we are going to use DynamoDB, and we will cover all the services. But the point I'm trying to make here is all your services will be backed by AWS services, so you don't have to worry about scaling. If on next day hundreds or thousands user come on your website or web app or maybe mobile app, then you don't have to worry about a scaling problem. Also from the cost optimization point of view, you don't have to worry about costing because everything is serverless, so you won't be paying any charge until your usage is limited or residing within free tier. All right. So moving to the next thing, which is agenda. So what we are going to cover primarily in this video, I'm going to first talk about Amplify categories, because this is something which is used across AWS documentation, and you might not aware what is an Amplify category. Then I will talk about the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2, and you will find like uh, how the Gen 2 framework is different from Gen 1. What are the new features of Gen 2? So that is also something that we are going to cover in the third point. All right. So first I would like to show you few apps that I have built using Amplify Gen 2. So I will quickly show them, and that would give you an idea what kind of application you can build with this framework. So, and you can also find the code of those applications from my GitHub repository. So this is the first app, which is Amplify Gen 2 Bedrock AI apps, which you can access from here. The code is available here. You can go through it. So I will close this code, and this is hosted on Amplify hosting, and you can see I am already logged in. So this is the application that I created, which is basically has multiple apps. One is text refresher, and once I provide the text, it would rephrase it using Amazon Bedrock. And another application or another tool within this application is this Instagram captions generator. So if I upload any image here, for example, if I upload this AWS logo, and I so this image is uploaded on Amazon S3, and we are using this Amplify file uploader component. So this is the power of Amplify. Like you will find all those controls available and provided by AWS, so that you can use in your front end app, and these components are connected with AWS services, so that makes your development way easier. So now I would say AWS cloud. I just provided it a little bit more context. So this will help AI to generate better captions. Now what I'm doing, I have selected include emojis and the number of captions I want to generate. So I say 6, and then I will say submit. So the moment click on submit, it will invoke the Lambda function will invoke the Bedrock API, and we will get the response. So you can see we have got 6 Instagram captions, and that have emojis as well for the image that we have uploaded. So this is the app that I have created with AWS Amplify, and you can find entire code here. So the reason I'm showing you these apps, because you will get a motivation what kind of apps you can build with this Amplify. Second app that I would like to show, which is still in development. So this is serverless cloud drive. So and this is you can access from this link. So this app basically, I think the cloud drive or Google Drive and Dropbox are little costly, and I wanted to create my own cloud drive where I could upload my documents. So I created. I'm working on this application, or yeah, this application, and uh, I would store my documents in Amazon S3 and store these folders metadata in DynamoDB. So I'm building this application. This is still in progress, but yeah, I can give you a demo. So I can go and create a folder here. So I can create a demo folder, and the folder is created here. And once I double click to enter in this folder, I will get an option to upload files. And so once I use this, so I can just upload these two files, and the files are uploaded, and you can see the files are here, and I can download them, rename and delete them. So I'm going to use AWS S3 to store these files, and to save cost, I'm going to use AWS S3 instant retrieval storage class, so that the cost of my GBs of data would be way lesser than cloud drive or Dropbox. Sorry, Google Drive or Dropbox. So this is the application that I have created, and I have created bunch of other POCs as well, but these are the two available on my GitHub repository. So now I will close this and will move to the Amplify categories, which you might be interested about. So if you go to this link, which is an Amplify documentation link, and this link basically you will find that they have categorized everything. They have created few categories in Amplify to divide their or they have done logical categorization for Amplify, and these are those categories. So you will find like authentication, data storage and function. These are the top four categories. There are other categories as well, but if you are getting started, then you must know that these categories are important, and you should know how to implement these categories. If you know how to implement these categories, or you are aware about these categories, then you can build a good full stack application. And going forward, when you are utilizing these categories, then you can learn other categories as well. So let's talk about authentication. So for every application has an authentication need. Like as I said, I created this application, the one that I showed you. So I did not show you how we can log in, but I can show you, like if I go to this so if I log out, you can see now you can see this authenticator component, and I have to register myself, then I have to log in myself to enter this application. And every application that has a need of authentication and authorization, so there is a authentication category in Amplify for that. And this is something backed by Amazon Cognito. So Amazon Cognito is a service which deals with authentication and authorization. So this is a category which deals with authentication and authorization. Second category is data category. So every application that you build normally has an API, and we call those APIs to get the data, to store the data, and that data is stored somewhere in database. If we are building .NET application, the data normally is stored in SQL Server, or if we are building other application like in Java, Node.js, we are storing the data in MySQL or any other database. So if you are building the applications with Amplify, then you would also need a way to create APIs and to store the data. And where this uh, data category comes into the picture, and this data category is powered by Amazon service. So all these categories are powered by one or multiple AWS services. So this data category is powered by AWS AppSync. So AppSync is a service which allow you to create GraphQL APIs. Uh, so you don't have to learn GraphQL in order to work with this data category or to create APIs in Amplify Gen2. But yeah, if you learn GraphQL, it would be better for you, because you would be able to understand uh, uh, you know the framework in depth. Now I will come back on data category in next couple of minutes. But before that, let's understand about, or let's talk about functions category. So in AWS, Lambda functions are there, and we might have occasions where we need to trigger a Lambda function. For example, a file is uploaded in S3 bucket, then we want to mm, generate thumbnail from those files. So we want to trigger a Lambda functions, and that should do the job. And we want to whenever a user is created, we want to trigger a Lambda function that would basically send a mail to newly created users. So there are occasions, or there are events where we want to invoke a Lambda function, and that should do some job. So mm, uh, yeah, that should do some job, and that's why we need Lambda functions. And therefore, Amplify has created a dedicated category to deal with Lambda functions. And last, fourth category is storage category, because definitely we have an application, we would need to upload user generated content like files, folders, or maybe uh, mm, sorry, not folders, we have to store files, or if a user upload an image or PDF file, or which is generated by background as well. So all the data is stored in Amazon S3 bucket, so that is part of storage category. So whenever you come across like what are categories, so these are the categories in Amplify. Okay, now as I said, I will come back to Amplify data category. So this is because if we look at this image, this is just an AppSync API, but it is not just an AppSync API. AppSync is a service that could allows us to create GraphQL APIs, but in the background it could interact with multiple services. So before we understand this diagram, let's understand this. So this is an AppSync diagram where we have an API endpoint. So user invokes this GraphQL API, and we have resolvers, and those resolvers can invoke. So the one endpoint can talk to DynamoDB, one endpoint can talk to Aurora database, one endpoint can talk to Lambda function. So the API may have different endpoints, and different endpoints may have different data sources, right? So this is why I said like it is not just an AppSync. There are other services involved as well. So first thing, that this is a GraphQL API. Second thing, most of the time you will be creating, or you will be interacting with either DynamoDB or Lambda functions, because normally all the use cases are catered by these two services. So that means whenever you are hitting a AppSync API endpoint, it would either store your data in DynamoDB, or if you have a custom logic that needs to be implemented, like you have seen that I need to call Bedrock API. So in that case, I would write a custom Lambda function, and my AppSync API will call that Lambda functions. So this is how it works, and it is very easy to integrate this with DynamoDB and Lambda function, and the documentation is very good around it. So we have covered Amplify data part as well. Now let's talk about directory structure. So directory structure, if you create a new Amplify Gen2 app, you would find the directory structure like this. So it will this is a Next.js application, and you can see there's an Amplify directory, and in this Amplify directory, so this is a Next.js application initially, and this Amplify directory was not present there. But once we added support of Amplify, it creates an Amplify directory here, and you can see for every category that we just discussed, it creates a folder there. So for auth there is a category, for data there is a category, for functions there is a category, for storage there is a category. So for every category, because there is a folder, and what this Amplify folder contains, it is basically CDK code. Okay, if you don't know what is CDK, then let me explain you quickly. CDK is cloud development kit, or an AWS, because you have you normally go to AWS console, create resources. That is the manual way. But if you have to automate it, then you either use CloudFormation to write or your infrastructure as a code. So and you deploy those CloudFormation template that provisions the resources in background. But CloudFormation is little complicated for those who have not experienced with CloudFormation. So CDK is a way to programmatically generate CloudFormation templates. So if you are a .NET developer, or if you are a Node.js developer, or maybe Java developer, Python developer, CDK is allows you to create an application and write the code to provision your infrastructure in that particular language. So since Amplify is fully Gen 2 is fully TypeScript based framework, it uses TypeScript to create a CDK application, and this entire code is a CDK code, and entire files where these files are TypeScript files. So this backend.ts is the primary file as an entry point, and it has the information about the stack that is going to be created in CloudFormation. And all these authentication will create Amazon Cognito, data will create AppSync API, and DynamoDB tables, functions will create function tables, storage will create S3 bucket. So whatever you want to create, you will write that CDK code here, and rest your application is just like your front end Next.js application or React application. So once this application is deployed, the CDK application is deployed, your all your resources are get provisioned in your AWS cloud, then what will happen, it will generate an amplify output JSON file somewhere here, you can see here, which is basically not committed and ignored by Git, because the Git, once you create this amplify, configure this amplify, it will add that amplify output JSON in Git ignore. So this is not committed in Git, but this has all the information, like where, what is the URL of your Cognito, what is the URL of your AppSync API, and whatever the metadata AWS SDK on client side need, it will have all the information, and we will basically use that metadata or this file at the time of configuring the SDK on in the client side framework. So this is the directory structure, and this is how it works. All right, we have covered it. Now moving to the important part, Gen 1 versus Gen 2, and this is very important. So those who don't know what is Gen 1 and Gen 2, or have not worked on Gen 1 and just trying Gen 2, then they don't have to worry about it. They can directly start with Gen 2. But if you want to understand the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2, so I have categorized those differences in four categories. So first is architecture. So the Gen 1 framework, which was a CLI first framework, so they were not dealing with AWS CDK, and you were basically running AWS CLI commands to, as I said, the folder in the directory structure, you see this amplify. So folder has all the CDK code. So earlier this amplify folder was there, but it has CloudFormation template files, which are JSON files. So in the architecture wise, it was dealing with CloudFormation, not CDK, but Gen 2 is fully TypeScript based framework, so it deals with CDK and not CloudFormation. So you don't you and CDK is quite easier to understand in if we compare it with CloudFormation. Second thing, it is everything code first. You have everything in your code, and you can just go and modify there. In Gen 1, if you want to add authentication support, then you have to go to Amplify CLI and have to run some command to add a new category. And when you run that command, it would generate the respective CloudFormation template in your Amplify directory. So that is not the case. So they have entirely shifted the architecture from CLI to code first approach. Second thing is developer experience. Since earlier we were for the backend we were using CLI, Amplify CLI to provision CloudFormation templates, and the front end application was developed in TypeScript. So there was a gap. The developer experience was not uniform. Now they have seamlessly, I mean, they have streamlined the developer experience, and now we can use both TypeScript at both backend as well as front end. So um, uh, you can catch the runtime errors early in your code, because CDK will fail if there is some TypeScript error. So it is, give you more confidence whenever you are building an application. Third thing, local development. So this is what I have not covered in Gen 1, which was not available. This feature was not available in Gen 1, but in Gen 2, what you can do, you have a very good feature per developer's cloud sandbox. So suppose you have 5 members in your team, and you you want to test your application, which is committed in your GitHub repo. So now you I have suppose I am a developer and another is my friend is developer. So I don't have to use the stack that has been created by my friend. I can just go, I can just clone the repo. I can run one command, npx ampx sandbox, and what it will do, it will just deploy the entire stack in I mean entire stack which is present in Amplify folder as a separate sandbox stack, and it will generate the Amplify output JSON file. And when I run the application, it will connect with my stack, not the other person's stack, because I have separate Amplify output JSON, the other person has separate Amplify output JSON. And the second thing, you might be worried, like if we are provisioning too much stacks, then it could cost a lot. But because this is a serverless, so it won't cost you that much, or even I would say you won't be paying any charges if you are doing it for the development purpose, because you will be almost done within the free tier, because the free tier in AWS is quite generous. So the second thing is per git branch based environment is something. So if you have developer branch, if you have production branch, and you have multiple branch, so you can have separate environments in AWS. So you don't have to kind of maintain or make a strategy from the very beginning, because everything is all the framework is set up in a way, or the Amplify is set up in a way that allows you to provision a separate infrastructure for separate branches. And the fourth most important thing is Amplify Gen2 provides an ORM based experience whenever you are dealing with, or whenever you are creating API. So if you want to, if you have used entity framework in .NET, so you know that what kind of experience you get in whenever you are working with an ORM. So you get IntelliSense support, and it's just very easy to do the CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete with Amplify data, or I would say AppSync or DynamoDB, which are used in background. But you don't have to worry about that complexity. If you once you make an application, you will get to know. But unfortunately, this video is just theoretical video. But I have other videos where you can go and learn how you can build an a CRUD operation application with Amplify Gen 2. All right, we have covered almost the differences between Gen 1 and Gen 2. Last thing we are going to talk about Amplify Gen 2 features. So, so as I said, Amplify Gen 2 is a TypeScript framework, and it is end-to-end TypeScript. Backend is also in TypeScript, and frontend is also in TypeScript. So that is what makes it different from Gen 1. File-based conventions per cloud, per developer cloud sandbox environment, full stack Git branches. So all these framework features are basically available here. So I will go here, and basically we will discuss. These are the new features of Amplify Gen 2. So as you see, this is the feature ORM experience that I was talking about. TypeScript first framework. So if you want to create a chat application, then you can see. Okay, let me zoom it a little bit. So this chat, so they have created a chat model and message model, and when we are using a dot model, it will create a DynamoDB table in background. So we will have two tables, one for chat, one for message. And if you want to get or create a new, or a, so here you can see, if you want to create a new message, you just need to write this code, client.model.message.create, and you need to pass the object of message, and it would insert the data in the underlying DynamoDB table. So similarly, you have method like list, get, update, all those methods, which makes the the experience very easy. You can get the data and write the data to the DynamoDB table very easily in your front end application. And uh, in the as a middle layer, so you are writing this code in front end, you are getting the data from DynamoDB, but in between it is this client is basically invoking the AppSync API that is doing all the heavy lifting of you know fetching the data and passing the data to you. Second thing, file based conventions. As you see, you have, as I explained you earlier, you have this Amplify folder and which has all the backend code and in your full stack application, so you don't have to maintain two separate repos for backend and front end. Everything is in your single repo or single code per developer cloud sandbox environment. As I explained this again in our previous section where we were discussing Gen 1 and Gen 2 differences. So you can have separate developers, and each developer is having the code on their local machine. They are running the code on localhost 3000 port, which is their front end application. But front end application is connecting with different sandbox environment in Amplify, so you don't have to share one environment with your other colleagues whenever you're working on a feature. So that gives you kind of flexibility to work independently and deliver independently. And then you have a CI/CD pipeline automated. Here you have full stack Git branches, which is basically you once you commit in dev branch, your dev branch will have a separate stack. You will get a separate URL for development environment. Once you merge the code of dev into main, then you will have a separate production URL and separate stack for production application. So this way you can have multiple branches like main, dev, pre-prod, or staging or test, and each branch will have a separate URL. So this is something which you can configure in Amplify console. And you can also extend the backend with AWS CDK. So by default the categories I have explained, all data and other categories, but if you want to use SQS, SNS, or any other AWS service, then you can just write this normal TypeScript CDK code here in this file, backend.ts file, and you would be able to provision those resources as well with Amplify Gen 2. And yeah, there are other supports, other features as well, like monorepo support as well. I have not dig deep into this, but yeah, there are other features as well. But I think if you understand these features, and if you understand the difference between Gen 1 and Gen 2, and what features or what positive things Gen 2 brings in your development, then you are good to go. So this was an introductory video of Amplify Gen 2 framework, and I hope you have liked this video. So if you would like to know more about Amplify Gen 2, then I am creating new videos for it. But yeah, if you like this video, then please do like and share. Thank you very much for watching.